The stagecoach lurched to a halt outside the general store in Platteville, Colorado, and Olivia Hartwell stepped down into the frozen February morning of 1878 with nothing but determination in her heart and desperation in her empty pockets. She had traveled 3 weeks from Pennsylvania, with her baby sister asleep in her arms, 2-year-old Daisy burning with fever, and Olivia knew with bone-deep certainty that if she did not get milk into the child within the hour, she would lose the only family she had left in this world. The mining town sprawled before her in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, buildings huddled together as if for warmth against the bitter cold. Smoke rose from chimneys in thin gray columns that dissolved into the pale winter sky. Olivia's worn boots crunched through the snow as she hurried toward the mercantile, clutching Daisy tighter against her chest. The child whimpered, her small body radiating heat even through Olivia's threadbare coat. Inside the store, warmth hit her like a physical force. A pot-bellied stove glowed red in the corner, and the proprietor, a thick-waisted man with suspicious eyes, looked up from his ledger. "Help you?" His tone suggested he doubted she could afford anything in his establishment. "I need milk. Fresh milk if you have it. My sister is sick." Olivia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Got some. $1 a bottle." $1. Olivia's stomach clenched. She had 17 cents to her name. She had spent everything else getting them this far, following a letter from her uncle who was supposed to be working a silver claim outside Platteville. She had arrived only to learn he had died in a cave in 2 months prior. "I do not have $1." She forced herself to meet the shopkeeper's eyes. "But I have this." She shifted Daisy to one arm and began unbuttoning her coat with numb fingers. The man's expression shifted from suspicion to something almost pitying. "Miss, that coat is not worth. It is all I have." Olivia's voice cracked. "Please. She is 2 years old and burning up. I just need milk, just 1 bottle." The shopkeeper studied her for a long moment, taking in her pale face the fine bones that spoke of gentler origins, the desperation in her eyes. He sighed heavily. "That coat would not fetch 50 cents anywhere in this territory. It is too thin, got holes in the lining." "I know." Olivia pulled the coat off completely, standing in nothing but her worn traveling dress. The cold bit through the fabric immediately. "But it is what I can offer." Something in her quiet dignity must have moved him, or perhaps it was the sick child in her arms. He nodded slowly. "All right then. 1 bottle." Relief flooded through her so intensely she thought her knees might buckle. She laid the coat on the counter with trembling hands and accepted the glass bottle of milk, still cool from the ice house. "Thank you. God bless you. Where are you staying?" the shopkeeper asked, but Olivia was already moving toward the door, murmuring reassurances to Daisy as she prepared to coax milk into the fevered child. "We will find somewhere," she said, and stepped back out into the brutal cold. The temperature seemed to have dropped even in those few minutes. Without her coat, the wind cut through her dress like knives. Olivia ducked into the narrow space between the mercantile and the assayer's office, sinking down against the wall where at least the wind could not reach her. Her fingers shook as she uncorked the bottle. "Come on, sweetheart. Just a little, please." She tilted the bottle against Daisy's cracked lips. The child turned her head away, whimpering, I know it hurts, but you need to drink, just a little bit." It took patient persistence, but finally Daisy began to sip. Tiny amounts, but it was something. Olivia held her close, trying to shield her from the cold, trying not to think about where they would sleep tonight or how she would feed them tomorrow. One problem at a time. Get milk into Daisy. Keep her warm. Survive until morning. She did not know how long she sat there, coaxing the sick child to drink, her own body growing colder with each passing minute. The sun climbed higher but gave no warmth. Her teeth began to chatter. Still, she stayed focused on Daisy, getting a third of the bottle into her before the child fell into an exhausted sleep. Olivia leaned her head back against the rough wood wall and closed her eyes. She was so tired. The journey from Pennsylvania had been an endless nightmare of cramped stage coaches and nights sleeping at way stations, watching their money dwindle. She had been a schoolteacher back home, living with her parents and younger sister in a comfortable house on a tree-lined street. Then the fever had come. Scarlet fever, the doctor said. Her mother died first, then her father 3 days later. Olivia had nursed them both, desperate and helpless, and somehow she and Daisy had survived, but there was nothing left. The house belonged to the bank, and her father's debts consumed everything else. The only hope had been her mother's brother, Uncle James, who had written enthusiastic letters about opportunities in the Colorado Territory. So Olivia had taken the last of their money and fled west, chasing the promise of family and a fresh start. Now James was dead. She had no coat, no money, and no plan. She tightened her arms around Daisy and tried to stop shaking. The sun was sliding toward the mountains when she heard boots crunching through the snow. Olivia opened her eyes to see a tall figure blocking the light. She blinked, trying to focus through her exhaustion. "Madam," the voice was deep, edged with concern. "Are you all right?" She looked up at a cowboy, lean and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of a summer sky. He wore a heavy sheepskin coat and a black hat dusted with snow, and his weather-beaten face creased with worry as he took in her situation. "I am fine." The lie was automatic, protective. "You are sitting in an alley without a coat in February." His tone was gentle but firm. "You are not fine. Is that a child?" Olivia's arms tightened around Daisy. "She is my sister. She is sick. We are just resting." The cowboy crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the genuine concern in his expression. He was perhaps 25 or 26, with the capable, competent air of a man who knew how to survive in harsh country. "Name is Xander Ellis," he said quietly. "I work at the Double R Ranch about 5 miles north. I came into town for supplies." He paused. "Where is your coat?" Olivia's throat tightened. "I traded it for milk." She needed milk. Something flickered across Xander's face, too quick to name. He straightened and began shrugging out of his sheepskin coat. "No, here," he held it out. "I cannot take your coat." Olivia tried to stand, but her legs had gone numb from the cold. She stumbled, and Xander caught her elbow, steadying her. "You are freezing." His voice was matter of fact. "I've got another jacket on my horse. Take this." "I cannot, madam." He cut her off, not unkindly. "That baby needs you healthy. You cannot care for her if you freeze to death in an alley. Please, take the coat." The warmth radiating from the sheepskin was almost painful to contemplate. Olivia looked at this stranger's face, searching for ulterior motives, but saw only honest concern. Slowly she nodded. Xander draped the coat around her shoulders, still warm from his body. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Olivia pulled it close, wrapping it around both herself and Daisy, and had to blink back sudden tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "When did you eat last?" Xander asked. Olivia could not remember. "Yesterday, the day before. I am not hungry." His expression told her he did not believe that for a second. "The boarding house serves supper in about an hour. Let me buy you a meal." "You have already been too kind." "I cannot accept. Can you accept help for the baby?" He nodded toward Daisy. "There is a doctor in town, Doc Morrison. He is gruff but good at what he does. Let me take you both there, get the child looked at, then get some hot food in you. After that, if you want to tell me to go to hell, I will respect that, but at least let me do this much." Olivia looked down at Daisy's flushed face, felt the heat of her fever, and her resistance crumbled. Pride was a luxury she could not afford. "All right, thank you." Xander offered his hand and helped her to her feet. Her legs shook, but she managed to stand. He kept a steadying hand on her elbow as they walked down the main street toward a small house with a sign that read Morrison, physician. The doctor was indeed gruff, a silver-haired man with wire-rimmed spectacles and no patience for small talk. But his hands were gentle as he examined Daisy, checking her temperature, looking at her throat, listening to her breathing. "Fever, but her lungs are clear. That is good." He mixed a bitter powder with water. "Get this into her, a spoonful every 4 hours. Keep her warm and hydrated. The fever should break in a day or two if it is going to break. If." The word hung in the air like a threat. Olivia nodded, accepting the medicine bottle with trembling hands. "What do I owe you?" $2. Her heart sank. Xander pulled out a worn leather wallet. "I have got it." "No, I cannot let you. Consider it a loan." He placed the money on the doctor's desk. "You can pay me back when you are settled." Olivia wanted to argue, but what choice did she have? She swallowed her pride and nodded. "Thank you. I will repay you, I promise." Outside, the temperature had dropped further as dusk approached. The coat kept the worst of the cold at bay, but Olivia's dress was still thin, her boots inadequate for the snow. Xander noticed her shivering and gestured toward a building with warm light spilling from the windows. "Boarding house is just there. Mrs. Chen sets a good table." The dining room was small but clean, with 6 tables covered in checkered cloth. The smells of roast beef and fresh bread made Olivia's stomach cramp with hunger. Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman with shrewd eyes and a kind smile, showed them to a table near the fire. "Your wife looks frozen through," she said to Xander. "I will bring coffee." "Oh, we are not," Olivia started, but the woman had already bustled away. Xander cleared his throat. "Easier sometimes to just let folks assume. Keeps the questions down." Olivia nodded, too tired to care much about propriety. She settled Daisy on her lap, the child's head resting against her shoulder. Mrs. Chen returned with coffee so hot it steamed, and Olivia wrapped her cold hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into her bones. "Thank you," she said to Xander, "for everything. I do not know what I would have done if you had not come along." He waved off her gratitude. "Anyone would have done the same. In my experience, most people would have walked past." Olivia took a sip of coffee, feeling it burn down her throat and into her empty stomach. "You are a good man, Mr. Ellis," Xander, he said, "and I have just got a working sense of right and wrong. Letting a woman freeze in an alley would not sit well with me." He studied her across the table. "You mentioned the baby is your sister," Olivia nodded. "Daisy, she is too. Our parents died last month. Scarlet fever. Lord, I am sorry. We came here because I thought our uncle could help us, but he died in a mining accident before we arrived." The words came easier than she expected. "So now I am trying to figure out what comes next." Mrs. Chen appeared with plates piled high with roast beef, potatoes, carrots, and thick slices of bread. Olivia stared at the food, her eyes stinging. When had anyone last shown her such kindness? "Eat," Xander said gently. "We can talk after." The food was the best thing Olivia had tasted in weeks. She forced herself to eat slowly, to not make herself sick. Daisy woke briefly and accepted a few bites of mashed potato before falling asleep again. Across the table, Xander ate in comfortable silence, occasionally glancing at her with those blue eyes that seemed to see too much. When the plates were empty and fresh coffee poured, Xander leaned back in his chair. "I might know of something that could help. The ranch where I work, the Double R, belongs to Ruth and Robert Rawlings. They are good people. Ruth has been looking for help in the house, someone to help with cooking and cleaning. They have got 3 boys, all under 10, running wild. The pay is not much, but it comes with room and board, a little cabin out back that is sitting empty. Hope flickered in Olivia's chest, fragile and dangerous. I was a schoolteacher back in Pennsylvania. I can read and write and do figures. I can cook and clean. I can work hard. I believe you. Xander's voice was warm. I can talk to Ruth tomorrow if you like. Bring you out to meet her. She is particular about who she brings onto the place, but I think you two would get along. Why are you doing this? The question burst out before Olivia could stop it. You do not know me. I could be anyone. Xander was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in his hands. About 4 years back, I was in a bad way. Broke, hungry, no prospects. A man named Robert Rawlings saw me trying to trade my saddle for a meal and offered me a job instead. Gave me a chance when I had nothing. Changed my whole life. He met her eyes. Figure I can pass that along. The simple honesty in his words made Olivia's throat tight. I would be grateful for the introduction, more than grateful. Then we will ride out in the morning. Xander pushed back from the table. Tonight you need a place to sleep. Mrs. Chen rents rooms upstairs. Let me settle that for you. I cannot keep accepting your charity loan, he corrected. You will pay me back when you can. For now, that baby needs a warm bed, and so do you. Olivia was too exhausted to argue further. She let Xander arrange a room, let Mrs. Chen lead her upstairs to a small but clean space with a real bed and warm quilts. She gave Daisy her medicine, changed her into the only other dress they owned, and tucked them both under the covers. The last thing she thought before sleep claimed her was of blue eyes and a warm coat, and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they would survive this after all. Morning came gray and cold. Olivia woke to find Daisy's fever had dropped slightly, and the child was sleeping more peacefully than she had in days. Thank God. She administered another dose of medicine, then washed as best she could in the basin of cold water on the dresser. Her reflection in the small mirror showed a haggard young woman with dark circles under her eyes and cheekbones too prominent from missed meals. She was 21 years old but felt ancient. Still, she pinned up her dark hair as neatly as she could manage and straightened her dress. First impressions mattered, and she desperately needed this job. Downstairs, Mrs. Chen provided breakfast of eggs and toast that Olivia ate while Daisy picked at a biscuit soaked in milk. The child seemed better this morning, more alert, and Olivia sent up a silent prayer of thanks. Xander arrived as she was finishing her coffee. He looked different in daylight, she thought. Younger somehow, though no less capable. He wore a clean shirt under his jacket and had shaved, and when he smiled at her, something warm unfurled in her chest. Morning. How is the little one? Better, I think. The fever has dropped. Good. That is real good. He glanced at the window. I've got the wagon outside. It is a bit of a ride to the ranch. Olivia wrapped Daisy in Xander's coat, which was far too big but wonderfully warm, and followed him out to a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 horses. He helped her up onto the bench seat, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. The road north wound through rolling country dusted white with snow. The mountains rose to the west, majestic and indifferent. The cold air bit at Olivia's face, but the coat kept most of it at bay. Beside her, Xander handled the horses with easy competence, occasionally pointing out landmarks. That is the Johnson spread. They run cattle, mostly. Good neighbors. And over there, see that stand of cottonwoods? There is a creek that runs year-round. Frozen now, but come spring it is real pretty. Olivia found herself relaxing into the rhythm of the wagon, the creak of wheels and jingle of harness. How long have you worked for the Rawlings? 4 years, like I said. Started as just a hand, but Robert taught me the business. I am foreman now, oversee the other men. There was quiet pride in his voice. "They have been good to me, gave me a chance to prove myself." "What did you do before?" His expression shuddered slightly. "Drifted mostly. Worked odd jobs, got into some trouble, nothing I am proud of. Robert saw something in me I did not see in myself." He glanced at her. "What about you? What was it like being a school teacher?" "I loved it." The admission came easily. "I taught at a small school, children aged 6 to 14. It was challenging but rewarding. I miss it." "Maybe you could teach again. Platteville has got a schoolhouse, but I hear they are always looking for qualified teachers." "Maybe." Olivia allowed herself to imagine it. A classroom of her own again, Daisy healthy and happy, a cabin to call home. It seemed almost too good to hope for. The Double R Ranch came into view as they crested a low rise. The main house was a sprawling wooden structure with a wide porch and smoke rising from 2 chimneys. Outbuildings dotted the property. A barn, stable, bunkhouse, chicken coop, and a small cabin set apart from the others. Cattle grazed in the distance, dark shapes against the snow. "It is beautiful," Olivia breathed. Xander's face softened with obvious affection for the place. "It is home." He drove the wagon up to the main house and helped Olivia down. Before they reached the porch, the door flew open and 3 boys tumbled out, whooping and shouting. "Xander, you are back. Did you bring candy?" "Maybe." Xander grinned and pulled peppermint sticks from his pocket, distributing them to eager hands. "But only if you promise to behave for your ma." The boys, ranging in age from perhaps 5 to 9, grabbed their candy and raced back inside, leaving the door open. A woman appeared in the doorway, shaking her head with fond exasperation. "Those boys will be the death of me," she said, but her eyes were warm. Ruth Rawlings was in her mid-30s, with curly brown hair escaping its pins and flour on her apron. She looked tired but content, a woman comfortable in her own skin. "Ruth, this is Olivia Hartwell." "Olivia, Ruth Rawlings. I told her about the position you mentioned, helping around the house." Ruth's sharp eyes took in Olivia's worn dress, the sleeping child in her arms, the shadows under her eyes. "Come inside, dear. You look frozen. We can talk over coffee." The house was warm and chaotic. Toys littered the floor, and the smell of baking bread filled the air. Ruth shooed the boys upstairs and settled Olivia at the kitchen table with coffee and slices of fresh bread slathered with butter. "Xander told me a bit about your situation," Ruth said, her voice kind but direct. "I am sorry for your losses. Losing your parents and finding your uncle gone, that is hard." "Thank you." Olivia straightened her shoulders. "I know you do not know me, Mrs. Rawlings, but I am a hard worker. I taught school for 3 years back in Pennsylvania. I can cook, clean, and I am good with children. If you give me a chance, I promise I will not disappoint you." Ruth studied her for a long moment. "The work is not easy. 3 boys make a lot of mess and a lot of laundry. My husband and I manage the ranch, which means I am often pulled in 10 directions at once. I need someone I can rely on, someone who will not run off when the work gets hard." "I have nowhere to run to," Olivia said honestly. "And even if I did, I would not. I understand the value of honest work and keeping one's word." Something in Ruth's expression softened. "The pay is $30 a month plus room and board. That cabin out back needs some fixing up, but it is sound. Has a stove, a bed, a table. You would have your privacy. Meals you can take with us or fix yourself, whichever suits. I would expect help with cooking, cleaning, laundry, and watching the boys when I need to be elsewhere. Does that sound acceptable? $30 a month. More than Olivia had made teaching, and with no expenses for food or shelter. She could save, plan for the future, maybe even enroll Daisy in school when she was older. More than acceptable. Thank you, Mrs. Rawlings. Ruth, We do not stand on formality here." She rose and held out her hand. "Welcome to the Double R, Olivia." They shook hands, and Olivia felt the weight on her chest ease slightly. She had a job, a place to live, a chance. Xander helped her move her meager belongings, which amounted to one small trunk, into the cabin. He was right that it needed work. The windows needed caulking, and the floor could use new boards in places, but the stove worked, and the bed was sturdy. He spent the afternoon making repairs while Olivia swept and scrubbed, transforming the dusty space into something livable. By evening, the cabin was warm and clean. Olivia had made up the bed with quilts Ruth provided, and Daisy was napping peacefully in a drawer lined with blankets that served as a makeshift cradle. Xander stood by the door, hat in hand. "I should get back to the bunkhouse. Let you settle in." "Thank you, Xander." The words seemed inadequate for everything he had done. "I do not know how to repay you for your kindness. No repayment needed. I am just glad I could help." He hesitated, then added, "If you need anything, I am just across the yard in the bunkhouse. Do not hesitate to ask." After he left, Olivia sat in the single chair and looked around her new home. It was not much, but it was hers. She and Daisy were safe, warm, and fed. For the first time since her parents died, she allowed herself to hope that everything might actually be all right. The next week fell into a rhythm. Olivia rose before dawn to help Ruth with breakfast, then supervised the boys' lessons at the kitchen table while Ruth managed household tasks. The boys, William, Thomas, and little James, were energetic and curious, and Olivia found herself enjoying the challenge of keeping them engaged. She cooked, cleaned, did laundry until her hands were raw, and fell into bed each night exhausted but satisfied. Daisy's fever broke completely after 3 days, and the child began to blossom. She followed Olivia around like a shadow, chattering in her toddler language, charming everyone she met. Ruth doted on her, and the boys treated her like a living doll. And then there was Xander. Olivia saw him at meals, which the ranch hands took in the main house. He always greeted her with that easy smile, always asked how she was settling in, always treated her with unfailing courtesy. She found herself watching for him, listening for his voice, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. It was dangerous, this growing warmth she felt when he was near. She could not afford distractions, could not afford to rely on anyone but herself, and yet she could not seem to help it. One evening in early March, after the supper dishes were washed and put away, Olivia stepped out onto the porch of her cabin to watch the sunset. The air was cold but held a whisper of coming spring. She heard footsteps and turned to find Xander approaching. "Evening," he said. "Thought I would check if that window is still giving you trouble. It is fine. You fixed it well." She gestured to the spare chair on the porch. "Would you like to sit? I was just enjoying the quiet." He settled into the chair with a contented sigh. "I know what you mean. Some days the noise in the bunkhouse is enough to drive a man crazy." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn gold and pink. Finally, Olivia said, "I owe you money. For the doctor, the room at the boarding house, the meals. I have been keeping track. I should have my first wages in a week. Keep your money. Use it for things you and Daisy need." "No," Olivia's voice was firm. "I pay my debts. You have been incredibly kind, but I will not be a charity case." Xander looked at her, something warm in his expression. "You have got pride." "I respect that. All right, if it matters to you, we will call it square when you can manage it. Thank you." She paused, then added, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you help me that day? You could have just walked past like everyone else." Xander was quiet for a moment, staring out at the mountains. "My ma died when I was 12. She was sick for a long time, and my pa tried everything, but we did not have money for doctors or medicine. She died in pain, scared, with nothing to ease her way. His voice was rough. When I saw you in that alley with that sick baby, trying so hard to be strong when you were breaking apart, I saw my ma. I could not walk past. Would not have been able to live with myself if I had. Olivia felt her throat tighten. I am sorry about your mother. It was a long time ago. He cleared his throat. Anyway, I am glad I stopped, glad you and Daisy are doing well. We are, thanks to you. She reached over and touched his hand briefly. You are a good man, Xander Ellis. He looked at her hand on his, then up at her face, and something passed between them. A recognition, a possibility. Then Daisy wailed from inside the cabin and the moment broke. I should, Olivia stood quickly. Of course. I will see you at breakfast. As Olivia tended to her sister, she could still feel the warmth of Xander's hand under hers, the way his eyes had softened when he looked at her. She told herself not to read too much into it, but her heart was already several steps ahead. Spring arrived slowly, the snow melting in patches, revealing brown grass beneath. The ranch became busier as calving season started. Xander spent long days in the pastures, returning exhausted and covered in mud. Olivia watched him from the kitchen window as he worked, admiring his easy competence with the animals, the way the other men looked to him for guidance. Ruth noticed. He is a good one, she said one afternoon as they peeled potatoes together. Xander, I mean. Robert says he is the best foreman we have ever had. Honest, hardworking, treats the men fair. He seems very capable, Olivia said carefully. Ruth gave her a knowing look. He is also single and decent-looking if a woman was looking. Olivia felt her cheeks heat. I am not looking. I have Daisy to think about. A child needs a father as much as a mother needs a partner. Ruth's voice was gentle. And I have seen the way he looks at you, like you are water in the desert. Ruth, I am just saying, do not close yourself off to possibilities. You deserve some happiness after everything you have been through. Olivia thought about that conversation as she went about her work. Did Xander look at her differently? She had caught him watching her sometimes, but she had assumed she was imagining it, seeing what she wanted to see rather than what was real. The answer came on a warm April evening. Olivia was hanging laundry behind her cabin when Xander rode up on his horse, a beautiful chestnut mare. Evening, he called, dismounting. I was wondering if you might like to take a ride, show you some of the ranch. It is real pretty this time of year. Olivia glanced at the laundry, then back at Xander's hopeful expression. I should finish this. It will still be here when you get back. Come on. When was the last time you did something just for the pleasure of it? He had a point. Olivia hung the last shirt on the line and dusted off her hands. All right, but I have never ridden a horse. Then it is past time you learned. His grin was infectious. Do not worry. Rosie here is gentle as a kitten. He taught her how to mount, how to sit, how to hold the reins. Then he swung up behind her, his arms coming around to help guide the horse. Olivia was intensely aware of his warmth at her back, the strength of his arms, the way his breath stirred her hair. They rode out across the rolling pastures, and Xander was right. It was beautiful. Wildflowers were beginning to bloom, splashes of color against the green grass. In the distance, the mountains still wore caps of snow. The sky was so big it made her feel small and significant all at once. You see that ridge, Xander pointed. Sometimes elk come down in the evenings, and that creek there, it is full of trout, best fishing in the county. It is wonderful, Olivia breathed. So different from Pennsylvania. Do you miss it? Your old life, she considered the question. I miss my parents. I miss teaching sometimes. But this, she gestured at the landscape, this feels like a fresh start. Like I get to decide who I am here, not just be who I was. I know that feeling. His voice was warm near her ear. I came here running from who I was, hoping to become someone better. I think it worked. You are a good man, Xander. I hope you know that. His arms tightened briefly around her. I am trying to be, especially when there is something worth being good for. Her heart kicked against her ribs. Xander, I know this might not be the right time, he said quietly. And Lord knows I am not much of a catch, but I have grown real fond of you, Olivia. You and Daisy both. I wanted you to know that. Olivia twisted in the saddle to look at him. His blue eyes were serious, hopeful, vulnerable. I have grown fond of you too, she admitted. But I am scared. I lost everyone I loved. I do not know if I can risk that kind of pain again. I cannot promise you will never hurt. That is part of living, I think. He reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But I can promise I would never hurt you on purpose, and I would do my best to make you happy every single day. She looked at this man who had saved her life, who had shown her nothing but kindness, who made her feel safe and seen and valued. Maybe Ruth was right. Maybe she deserved some happiness. I would like to try, she whispered, if you are patient with me. His smile was like sunrise. I have got all the patience in the world. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Olivia felt something unlock inside her chest. Hope. Not the fragile, desperate hope of survival, but something stronger, the hope of building something real and lasting. They rode back as the sun set, and when Xander helped her down from the horse, he kept his hands on her waist a moment longer than necessary. Can I call on you? Properly, I mean. I would like that. So began a courtship conducted in stolen moments between work. Xander would find excuses to visit her cabin in the evenings, sitting on the porch while Daisy played at their feet. They talked about everything and nothing, their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. He told her about his wild years after his mother died, how he had drifted into bad company and worse decisions, until Robert Rawlings had offered him a lifeline. She told him about the terror of watching her parents die, the crushing responsibility of caring for Daisy alone, the desperate gamble of coming west. With each conversation, Olivia felt herself falling deeper. Xander was kind without being weak, strong without being harsh. He made her laugh with stories of ranch mishaps and listened intently when she talked about her hopes of teaching again. He was wonderful with Daisy, patient and playful, and the child adored him. One Sunday, in late April, Xander drove Olivia and Daisy into Platteville for church services. It was the first time they had appeared together publicly, and Olivia was aware of the curious glances from the townspeople. Let them look. She was proud to be at Xander's side. After the service, the minister approached them. Reverend Matthews was an elderly man with kind eyes and a warm smile. Miss Hartwell, Mr. Ellis, wonderful to see you both. And who is this little darling, my sister Daisy? Olivia smoothed the child's dress, which Ruth had helped her make from new fabric, a blessing. The Reverend turned to Xander. I have been meaning to speak with you. We have been looking for someone to teach at our school. The previous teacher left to get married, and we desperately need someone qualified. Miss Hartwell, I understand you taught back east. Olivia's heart leaped. Yes, for 3 years. Children aged 6 to 14. Would you be interested in the position? It pays $40 a month, and you could start after the spring planting is done, around mid-May. $40. More than she made at the ranch, doing work she loved. It seemed too good to be true. I would be very interested. Wonderful. Come by the schoolhouse this week, and we will discuss details. As they walked back to the wagon, Olivia felt like she was floating. Can you believe it? A teaching position. It is more than I hoped for. Xander grinned at her excitement, but something in his expression was careful. It is great news. You will be wonderful at it. What is wrong? She could read him well enough now to sense his hesitation. Nothing is wrong. I am happy for you, truly. He helped her into the wagon. "Just wondering what it means for you working at the ranch. Ruth has come to depend on you." "Oh," Olivia had not thought that far ahead. "I suppose I would need to leave that position, but the teaching pays more and it is what I trained for. Of course. Makes sense." His tone was neutral, but Olivia caught the flash of disappointment before he hit it. On the drive back, she was quiet, thinking. The teaching job was an opportunity she could not pass up. But leaving the ranch meant leaving the daily proximity to Xander, the community they had built, the life she had started to imagine. Still, she had to think of her future, of Daisy's future. Teaching was a respectable profession with good pay. It was the practical choice. But when had love ever been practical? She watched Xander's profile as he drove, the strong line of his jaw, the capable hands on the reins. She had been falling in love with him for weeks now, she realized. Maybe since that first day when he had wrapped his coat around her. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. That evening, after Daisy was asleep, Olivia sat on her porch and tried to think through her options logically. She could take the teaching job, save money, build independence. It was the safe choice. But it would mean seeing Xander less, and the thought made her chest ache. Or she could stay at the ranch, continue helping Ruth, and see where this relationship with Xander led. But what if it did not work out? What if she was being foolish, building dreams on a foundation that might crumble? She was still wrestling with the decision when Xander appeared, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "Thought you might like some company." "Always." She accepted the coffee gratefully. "I have been thinking about the teaching position." "I figured." He settled into the other chair. "What are you leaning toward?" "I do not know. It is a good opportunity, Xander. Better pay, work I love. It would be foolish to turn it down." "Would it?" He looked at her steadily. "Or would it be foolish to choose a job over something that could be more?" Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I love you." The words came out plain and honest. "I have been in love with you for weeks, maybe since that first day. I know it is fast, and I know you need to think about Daisy and your future. But I want to be part of that future, Olivia. I want to marry you, raise Daisy as my own, build a life together. That is what I am offering if you want it." Olivia set down her coffee with shaking hands. "Xander, you do not have to answer now. I just needed you to know where I stand before you make your decision. If you take the teaching job, I will respect that. I will still be here, still courting you proper, still hoping. But if you are choosing that, because you think this between us is not real or not lasting, then I am here to tell you it is. On my end, at least." She looked at this good, honest man who had saved her life, and then proceeded to make it worth living again. He was offering her everything she had thought lost: security, family, love. And suddenly the decision was not difficult at all. "I love you too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I have loved you since you gave me your coat. I have just been too scared to admit it." The joy that broke across Xander's face was like watching the sun rise. "You mean it." "I mean it," she laughed, giddy with relief and happiness. "I do not need to think about it. Yes, I will marry you. Yes, I want to build a life with you. And yes, I will take the teaching job because we will need the extra money if we are going to start a family." He was out of his chair in an instant, pulling her up and into his arms. "You are sure? You are really sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Olivia felt like she was coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Xander rested his forehead against hers. "I promise I will spend every day making sure you never regret this," he said. "I know." She touched his face gently. "You are a good man, Xander Ellis, the best I have ever known." They were married in early June in a simple ceremony at the church with Ruth and Robert as witnesses. Olivia wore a cream-colored dress that Ruth helped her make, and Xander wore his best suit, looking handsome and slightly uncomfortable in the formal clothes. Daisy, dressed in a new pink frock, scattered wildflowers down the aisle with more enthusiasm than accuracy. Reverend Matthews performed the ceremony, and when Xander slipped a simple gold band on Olivia's finger, she felt tears prick her eyes. 4 months ago, she had been desperate and alone, trading her only coat for milk in a freezing alley. Now she stood in a church full of friends, marrying a man who loved her with a future full of promise stretching ahead. "I love you," Xander whispered as the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife. "I love you too, always." The kiss they shared was witnessed by the entire congregation and met with enthusiastic applause. As they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, Olivia caught sight of Mrs. Chen from the boarding house, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief, and the shopkeeper who had accepted her coat for milk, nodding approvingly. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and more food than seemed possible. Ruth had organized everything with military precision, and the result was a party that lasted well into the evening. There was music and dancing and laughter, and Olivia thought her heart might burst from happiness. As the sun set, Xander pulled her away from the crowd for a private moment. They walked to the ridge overlooking the ranch, the place he had first brought her on horseback. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Incredibly." She leaned back against his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat. "Sometimes I think about that day in the alley, how close I came to giving up, if you had not come along, but I did." He kissed the top of her head. "And you did not give up. You fought for yourself and Daisy, and that is why you are here. I just got lucky enough to help. We both got lucky." She turned in his arms to face him. "I found you. We found each other." He touched her face gently. "And I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you are glad we did." They moved into a small house on the edge of the ranch property, a wedding gift from Robert and Ruth. It was cozy and well built, with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a porch that faced the mountains. Xander had spent weeks fixing it up, and Olivia had made curtains and filled it with small touches that made it home. In mid-May, Olivia started her position at the schoolhouse. She taught 15 students ranging from 6 to 13 years old, and she threw herself into the work with passion. It was challenging and rewarding in equal measure, and she came home each day energized despite her exhaustion. Xander would have dinner waiting, often with Daisy helping in a way that created more mess than assistance. They would eat together, share stories of their days, and then Xander would wash dishes while Olivia put Daisy to bed. In the evenings, they sat on the porch and talked or simply enjoyed the peaceful silence of the ranch. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Olivia loved her teaching, loved watching her students grow and learn. She loved coming home to Xander, to the life they were building together. Daisy thrived, growing from a sickly toddler into a robust, cheerful child who adored her papa Xander. In October, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. She told Xander over dinner, watching his face transform from confusion to understanding to pure joy. "A baby. We are having a baby." He came around the table and knelt beside her chair, his hands on her still flat stomach. "Truly, truly." She covered his hands with hers. "Are you happy?" Happy does not even begin to cover it. He looked up at her with such love it took her breath away. "You have given me everything, Olivia. Everything I never thought I would have. A home, a family, a purpose. I love you so much." "I love you too." She bent to kiss him. "We are going to be all right, are we not, all of us? Better than all right. We are going to be happy, I promise you that." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Olivia had to stop teaching in her 7th month when the walk to the schoolhouse became too tiring. She spent those last weeks preparing for the baby, sewing tiny clothes and setting up the nursery with Ruth's enthusiastic help. On a warm May evening in 1879, Olivia went into labor. Xander rode for the doctor in a panic while Ruth stayed with her, calm and capable. The labor was long but not difficult, and when dawn broke, Olivia held her son in her arms. "He is perfect," she whispered, counting tiny fingers and toes. The baby had Xander's blue eyes and a shock of dark hair. Absolutely perfect. Xander sat beside her on the bed, looking at his son with wonder. What should we name him? They had discussed names but never settled on one. Now, looking at this tiny person they had created, Olivia knew. Samuel. "After my father. Samuel Ellis." Xander tested the name and smiled. "I like it. Samuel it is." The baby fit into their lives as if he had always been meant to be there. He was a good-natured infant who slept well and ate enthusiastically. Daisy was enchanted with her baby brother and insisted on helping with everything. When Samuel was 3 months old, Olivia returned to teaching part-time, with Ruth watching the baby during school hours. It was a good arrangement that allowed her to do work she loved while still being present for her growing family. The years passed in a blur of work and joy and the small challenges that make up a life. Daisy started school and proved to be a bright student. Samuel grew into a curious, active boy who followed Xander around the ranch like a shadow. Olivia continued teaching, beloved by her students and respected in the community. In 1881, they had another child, a daughter they named Rose. She had Olivia's dark hair and Xander's easy smile, and she completed their family in a way Olivia had not known was missing. One evening in the spring of 1883, Olivia stood on the porch of their home and looked out at the ranch. Xander was in the yard, teaching Samuel and Daisy how to rope a fence post while Rose toddled around their legs. The mountains rose in the distance, still capped with snow, and the air smelled of grass and possibility. It had been 5 years since that desperate February day when she had traded her coat for milk. 5 years since Xander had found her in that alley and changed the course of her life. So much had happened, so much had changed, and yet the core of it remained the same: kindness, hope, and the transformative power of love. "Mama, watch this," Samuel called, successfully lassoing the post. Daisy cheered and Rose clapped her chubby hands in delight. Xander looked up and caught Olivia's eye. He smiled, that same warm smile that still made her heart skip, and mouthed, "I love you." She pressed her hand to her heart and mouthed it back. Then she walked down the steps to join her family, to be part of the life they had built together from nothing but hope and determination. And one cowboy's coat on a cold winter night, the children grew and thrived. Samuel proved to have his father's way with horses and spent every spare moment in the stables. Daisy discovered a love of reading that rivaled Olivia's own, and announced at age 10 that she wanted to be a teacher like her sister. Rose was the wild card, equally happy playing with dolls or helping Xander mend fences. In 1885, tragedy struck when Robert Rawlings died suddenly of a heart attack. The entire ranch mourned the loss of a good man and a fair boss. Ruth, devastated but pragmatic, asked Xander to take over managing the ranch entirely. It was a huge responsibility, but Xander rose to the challenge, implementing changes that made the operation more efficient and profitable. Olivia continued teaching, now the head teacher at the expanded schoolhouse. She had helped grow the school from 15 students to nearly 40, and the school board had built an addition to accommodate everyone. She loved watching children discover the joy of learning, loved seeing former students grow into capable adults who contributed to the community. Their own children flourished. Samuel, at age 8, could ride better than some of the ranch hands. Daisy, at 11, was helping Olivia with the younger students at school. Rose, age 4, was a whirlwind of energy who kept everyone on their toes. Life was not without challenges. There were hard winters when they worried about the cattle, dry summers when the creek ran low, years when money was tight and they had to make every penny count. But they faced each challenge together, and somehow that made all the difference. One night in the winter of 1886, after the children were asleep, Olivia and Xander sat by the fire. She was mending one of Samuel's shirts, and he was reviewing the ranch accounts. The peaceful domesticity of the moment made her smile. "What are you thinking about?" Xander asked, looking up from his ledger. "Just this, us, how far we have come." She set down her sewing. "Do you ever think about that day we met, all the time?" He closed the ledger and moved to sit beside her on the sofa. "I think about how close I came to not stopping. I was tired and cold and just wanted to get back to the ranch, but something made me look down that alley. I am glad you did." She leaned against his shoulder. "You saved my life that day, Xander, you and your coat. You saved mine too." He kissed the top of her head. "I was drifting before I met you, just going through the motions. You gave me purpose. You and the children, you are my reason for everything." She tilted her face up to his. "I love you, more now than even on our wedding day. I love you too, always will." They sat together in the firelight, comfortable in the silence, secure in their love. Outside, snow began to fall, but inside their home, it was warm and safe and full of the life they had built together. The years continued to roll forward. In 1888, when Olivia was 31 and Xander was 32, they faced a crisis. A harsh winter followed by a wet spring led to flooding that destroyed part of the ranch's grazing land. They lost a significant portion of the herd, and money became tighter than it had been in years. Olivia took on additional students for private tutoring in the evenings, and Xander worked from dawn until well after dark trying to salvage what he could. The children, now old enough to understand, pitched in without being asked. Samuel helped with the cattle, Daisy took over many of the household chores, and even little Rose gathered eggs and helped in the garden. It was a hard year, but it brought the family closer together. They learned they could weather any storm as long as they had each other. By the following spring, they had recovered most of what they lost and were back on solid footing. As the 1890s approached, Platteville grew from a rough mining town into a proper community. The railroad came through in 1889, bringing new opportunities and new people. The town got a bank, a proper hotel, and even a small library that Olivia helped establish. Their children were growing up. Samuel, now 11, was serious and capable, already talking about taking over the ranch someday. Daisy, 14, was preparing to attend the Teachers' College in Denver for a year of advanced training. Rose, 8, remained the family's ray of sunshine, cheerful and affectionate with everyone she met. In the summer of 1891, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. She was 34 and the pregnancy came as a surprise. Xander was thrilled, but Olivia had mixed feelings. She was older now, more tired, and she worried about complications. "We will be fine," Xander assured her, holding her close. "We have been through so much together. We can handle one more baby." He was right, of course. The pregnancy was uneventful, and in March of 1892 they welcomed another son, Thomas. He was a colicky baby who cried more than their others had, but he was healthy and loved, and that was what mattered. With 4 children now, their house felt smaller. Xander and several ranch hands built an addition, adding 2 more bedrooms and expanding the kitchen. It took most of the summer, but the result was a home that felt spacious and comfortable. Life settled once more into a rhythm. Olivia reduced her teaching hours to focus on baby Thomas, but she still went to the school 3 days a week. Daisy returned from her year in Denver full of new ideas and began teaching the younger children at the school, working alongside her sister. Samuel, at 14, was essentially Xander's right hand on the ranch. Rose started helping in the town library, organizing books and reading to the younger children. The children they had been were becoming the adults they would be, and Olivia felt the bittersweet pang of watching them grow. Where had the time gone? It seemed like just yesterday she was holding Samuel as a newborn, and now he was taller than she was. One evening in the fall of 1895, the whole family gathered for Sunday dinner, a tradition they maintained no matter how busy they were. The table was crowded with Olivia, Xander, Daisy now 19, Samuel 17, Rose 13, and Thomas 3. They held hands while Xander said grace, and Olivia looked around at their faces, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. "I have an announcement," Daisy said once the food was passed. She was blushing, her eyes bright. "I have been courting someone. His name is Peter Morrison, the doctor's nephew. He wants to speak with you, Papa, about courting me properly." Olivia's heart jumped. Her little Daisy courting? But of course, Daisy was not little anymore. She was 19, a capable teacher, a beautiful young woman. Xander cleared his throat. "I know Peter. He seems like a decent young man. I would be happy to speak with him." The conversation turned to Daisy's courtship, and Olivia caught Xander's eye across the table. He looked as overwhelmed as she felt. Their children were growing up, starting lives of their own. It was the natural order of things, but it still felt impossibly fast. That night, after the children were in bed, Olivia and Xander sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. "We are getting old," Olivia said, only half joking. "Speak for yourself. I am in my prime." Xander grinned, then sobered. "But yes, time is passing. The children are growing up. Soon we will have grandchildren." "Grandchildren." Olivia tested the word. "That makes us sound ancient or blessed." He took her hand. "We have built something good here, Olivia. A family, a life. When I think about that scared young woman in the alley and who you have become, the life we have created, it amazes me every single day. We created it together." She squeezed his hand. "I could not have done any of this without you. We make a good team, the best." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. The ranch was quiet around them, the children safe in their beds, the animals settled for the night. It was a moment of perfect peace, and Olivia knew she would remember it always. Daisy married Peter Morrison in the spring of 1896 in a beautiful ceremony at the church. She wore Olivia's wedding dress, altered to fit her taller frame, and she looked radiant. Peter was a kind young man training to follow his uncle into medicine, and it was clear he adored Daisy. Watching her daughter marry, Olivia thought back to her own wedding day nearly 18 years ago. She had been so young, so hopeful, so scared. Now she stood with silver threading through her dark hair and laugh lines around her eyes, secure in the knowledge that love was not just a feeling but a choice you made every day. The following year, Samuel announced his intention to marry a rancher's daughter from a neighboring spread. Her name was Catherine, and she was a sensible, hard-working young woman who fit seamlessly into the family. They married in the fall and moved into a small house on the ranch property. Rose, now 16, showed no interest in courtship, much to Olivia's relief. She was focused on her studies and had announced her intention to attend the teachers' college in Denver, following in her sister's footsteps. Thomas, now 6, was in school and proving to be a handful. He had boundless energy and a mischievous streak that kept everyone on their toes. But he was also sweet-natured and affectionate, climbing into Olivia's lap each evening to tell her about his day. In 1898, Daisy gave birth to Olivia and Xander's first grandchild. a girl they named Elizabeth. Holding the tiny baby, Olivia felt the circle of life complete itself. She was a grandmother now, passing on the love and wisdom she had received. The new century arrived with celebration and optimism. On New Year's Day 1900, Olivia and Xander stood on their porch and watched fireworks explode over Platteville. 22 years of marriage, 4 children, and now a grandchild. It was more than Olivia had ever dreamed of that desperate February day in 1878. "What are you hoping for in this new century?" Xander asked, his arm around her waist. "More of the same," Olivia said honestly. "More time with you, watching our children and grandchildren grow, making a difference through teaching. I do not need grand adventures. This life with you is adventure enough." "I feel the same." He kissed her temple. "Here is to the next 22 years and beyond." "Beyond," Olivia agreed. "Always beyond." The years of the new century brought changes. Platteville continued to grow and modernize. Electricity came to the town in 1902 and telephones in 1904. The ranch prospered under Xander and Samuel's joint management, expanding to twice its original size. Olivia finally retired from teaching in 1905 at age 48, after 30 years in education. The school board held a retirement party, and former students came from across the territory to honor her. It was a bittersweet day, leaving work she loved, but she was ready to slow down to spend more time with Xander and their growing family, because the family was growing. Daisy and Peter had 3 children by 1905. Samuel and Catherine had 2, with another on the way. Even Rose, who had sworn she would never marry, had fallen in love with a banker from Denver and married in a quiet ceremony in 1904. Thomas, now 14, was the only child still at home. He was growing into a thoughtful young man who loved working with his hands. He announced his intention to become a carpenter, building houses like his father had built the addition to their home. Life had taken on a gentler pace. Olivia spent her days reading, tending her garden, and being available when her children and grandchildren needed her. Xander, now 52, had passed most of the ranch management to Samuel, but still rode out most days to check on things. They had built a legacy, Olivia realized, not just in their children and grandchildren, but in the community they had helped shape. The school she had led for 3 decades. The ranch that provided employment and beef for the region. The countless small kindnesses and moments of grace that rippled out beyond what they could see. One evening in the summer of 1906, Olivia found an old coat at the back of her closet. Xander's sheepskin coat, the one he had wrapped around her that first night. It was worn now, the leather cracked in places, but she held it to her chest and remembered. "Found something?" Xander asked, coming into the bedroom. "Your coat. The one you gave me." He smiled, that same warm smile that still made her heart skip after all these years. "Best thing I ever did, giving you that coat. Got me a wife, a family, a whole life I never thought I would have." "It was not the coat." Olivia set it aside and went to him. "It was you. Your kindness, your heart, your willingness to see someone who needed help and actually do something about it. I saw a woman worth helping, worth knowing, worth loving." He took her hands. "I would do it all again in a heartbeat, every single moment. So would I." She rose on her toes to kiss him. "Every single moment." They stood together in the bedroom of the house they had made a home, in the middle of the life they had built from nothing but hope and determination and one cowboy's coat on a cold winter night. Outside, the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Their grandchildren played in the yard, their laughter floating through the open windows. And inside, 2 people who had found each other against all odds held each other close and thanked God for every moment they had been given. The coat hung in the closet, a reminder of where they had started. But when Olivia looked at Xander, she saw not the past but the future still ahead of them. More years together, more grandchildren to love, more sunsets to watch from their porch. It was not the grand adventure she had imagined as a young woman, but it was better. It was real and solid and true. It was love in its most enduring form. The years continued to unfold with a gentle rhythm. By 1910, Olivia and Xander had 8 grandchildren, and Daisy was expecting her 4th child. The family gatherings had grown too large for their house, so they held them in the barn with long tables set up and everyone bringing food. Xander, now 57, had finally fully retired from ranch work, though he still couldn't stay away completely. He would ride out with Samuel most mornings, offering advice when asked and keeping his opinions to himself when not. His hair had gone silver, and his face was deeply lined from years in the sun, but to Olivia he was as handsome as the day they met. Olivia, 53, had found a new passion in writing. She had begun recording her memories, stories of her childhood in Pennsylvania, the desperate journey west, meeting Xander, building their life together. She thought perhaps her grandchildren would want to read them someday, to know where they came from. Thomas, now 19, had become a skilled carpenter and was building a house for himself at the edge of town. He was courting a sweet girl named Mary, and Olivia suspected an engagement was not far off. Life was good. Not perfect, there had been sorrows along the way. They had lost Ruth Rawlings to pneumonia in 1908, and the grief had been profound. They had weathered financial setbacks and harsh winters and all the ordinary challenges that make up a life. But through it all, they had each other. One autumn evening in 1912, Olivia and Xander celebrated their 34th wedding anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. The children had offered to host a party, but they had declined, preferring an evening alone together. 34 years, Xander marveled, pouring them each a glass of wine. Where did the time go? Into 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 1 ranch, 1 school, and about 1 million ordinary moments that added up to an extraordinary life. Olivia raised her glass. To us, to the life we built. To the woman who traded her coat for milk and changed my life forever. Xander clinked his glass against hers. I love you, Olivia, more now than ever. I love you too, always. They drank and talked late into the night, reminiscing about their years together. The early days when they were building everything from nothing, the joy of each child's birth, the pride of watching them grow into good people, the satisfaction of work well done and a life well lived. If you could go back, Xander said as the fire burned low, to that day in the alley, knowing everything that would happen, would you do it all the same? Olivia did not hesitate. Every single moment, the fear, the struggle, the uncertainty, all of it was worth it to end up here with you. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. They made us who we are, they taught us what matters. She took his hand. And what matters is this. You, me, our family, the love we have built and shared. Everything else is just details. Xander brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. You are a wise woman, Olivia Ellis. I had a good teacher, she smiled. A cowboy who once gave a desperate woman his coat taught me about kindness and hope and the kind of love that lasts. They sat together in the dying firelight, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting. Outside, the wind whispered through the cottonwoods, and the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance. And inside, in the warmth and safety of the home they had created, 2 hearts beat in perfect synchrony, bound by love and time and the simple miracle of having found each other. As 1915 approached, Olivia was 58 and Xander 62. They were slowing down now, content to let the younger generation take over the running of the ranch and the raising of the next crop of children. They had 11 grandchildren now, ranging in age from newborn to 17, and the chaos of family gatherings brought them immeasurable joy. On a warm June day in 1915, the family gathered to celebrate Daisy's 40th birthday. The barn was decorated with flowers, and tables groaned under the weight of food. Children ran everywhere, their shrieks of laughter filling the air. Olivia sat in a chair of honor, watching the scene with deep contentment. Daisy approached, looking beautiful and happy despite the silver in her hair. "Mama, can I talk to you for a moment?" They walked outside, away from the noise. Daisy took Olivia's hands. "I wanted to thank you for everything, for bringing me west when you could have given me up to an orphanage, for fighting so hard to keep us together, for showing me what strength looks like." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "You never needed me to show you strength. You have always had it. I learned it from watching you." Daisy hugged her. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, sweetheart, more than words can say." Inside, Xander was surrounded by grandchildren, telling them exaggerated stories of the old days that made them giggle and gasp. Olivia watched him, this man who had saved her life and then spent decades making sure it was a life worth living. He looked up, caught her watching, and winked. Her heart swelled with love so intense it was almost painful. 37 years of marriage, and he could still make her feel like a young woman falling in love for the first time. As the party wound down and the sun set, the family gathered for a photograph. It took some time to arrange everyone, children squirming and adults adjusting positions. But finally they were ready. Olivia and Xander sat in the center, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and the life they had built together. The photographer counted down and the flash went off, capturing the moment forever. A family bound by love and blood and shared history. A legacy of kindness that started with one cowboy's coat on a cold winter night. The years grew shorter as they do. By 1920, Olivia was 63 and Xander 67. They had slowed considerably, content to spend their days quietly. Xander still rode when the weather was good, though never far. Olivia still wrote, filling journal after journal with memories and stories. They had 14 grandchildren now and 2 great-grandchildren with more on the way. The family tree they had planted was growing and flourishing, spreading branches in directions they could never have imagined. On a cold February morning in 1920, exactly 42 years after the day they met, Olivia woke to find it snowing. She watched the flakes fall past the window and thought about that desperate girl trading her only coat for milk, certain she would freeze but determined to save her sister. Xander stirred beside her, reaching for her hand as he did every morning. "Happy anniversary. You remember?" "I remember everything about that day, how scared you looked, how brave, how beautiful." He pulled her close. "Best day of my life finding you, mine too." She kissed him softly. "Thank you for your coat. Thank you for everything that came after. Thank you for letting me love you. For building this life with me. For 42 years of happiness." They rose and dressed, moving slowly with the stiffness of age. Downstairs, Olivia made coffee while Xander built up the fire. It was a dance they had perfected over decades, moving around each other with the ease of long practice. After breakfast, they bundled up and walked out to the porch. The snow had stopped, and the world was transformed into a winter wonderland. The mountains gleamed white against the blue sky, and the ranch stretched before them, beautiful and familiar. "Do you think we will get another 42 years?" Xander asked, his arm around her waist. "I do not think the good Lord works that way." Olivia leaned against him. "But however much time we get, I will treasure every moment. As will I." They stood together, watching the snow melt in the morning sun. Two people who had found each other in the darkest moment and created a lifetime of light. The years had been kind to them, but even more than that, they had been kind to each other. And that, Olivia thought, was the real secret to a life well lived. Love, not just the feeling but the action. The daily choice to care, to support, to forgive, to cherish. It was simple and profound, ordinary and miraculous. It was everything. And it had all started with a coat given freely on a cold winter night, by a cowboy with a kind heart, and a woman desperate enough to accept help. That simple act of kindness had rippled out across decades, touching countless lives, creating a legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone. Olivia looked up at Xander, memorizing the lines of his beloved face. "I love you. Then, now, always." "Always," he agreed, and kissed her as the sun climbed higher, warming the world and illuminating the beautiful life they had built together. The snow sparkled like diamonds, and somewhere in the distance, their grandchildren's laughter rang out clear and bright. It was a perfect moment, one of thousands they had shared, and Olivia knew with bone-deep certainty that this was what happiness looked like. Not grand gestures or dramatic moments, but the quiet contentment of growing old with someone you loved, surrounded by the family you created together, in the place you had made home. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything.